Welcome to another episode of a Nameless Community Vodcast. I'm Nostalgic. You can find me at nostalgic.com for more information. Today, I'm going to talk about your why, or what fuels you about live content creation. In my experience as a live content creator, I talk to a lot of people that are streaming, right? And a lot of the people constantly go through ups and downs, and during those ups and downs, they are trying to figure out like what it is that has them. They found something, right? They've seen someone else succeed, or they've looked at their brand and they're seeing failure, or they're looking to find something to give them an answer as to why something isn't happening the way they want it to happen. And I struggle with this. I know people that are way more successful than me struggle with this. And what it really comes down to is when those times hit you, you have to remember your why, your fuel. You have to remember what it is that keeps you doing this, what makes you want to stream, what makes you want to create live content. If you're not thinking about that and reminding yourself of that, you're going to burn out quick. You're going to have all of these problems that you don't see other people having because they're just focused on whatever it is that fuels them, or they're approaching it that way. I think that this can be hard for people like myself who approach this as a business and approach it as something where I want to make money, which I'm going to talk about as a factor that can be fuel. Those are things that, if you're not honest with yourself about it, I think you're setting yourself up for failure. So let's talk a little bit about that, right? So let's talk about some of the ideas. Maybe I can help spring forth ideas in your mind as to what it is that fuels you. And your fuel can be a couple of different things. It can be, a combination of them. I would say that mine is definitely a combination of them. But for some people, it's very strictly one thing. So maybe money is your absolute driving factor. Maybe you're after this like a career. This is definitely something that's in my combination of things that I'm after. But if you're after money, you need to think about with the content that you're creating. I think money is probably the most stressful of all the things to put on your shoulder, for sure. I think that like seeing your numbers go up and stuff like that, like followership, concurrent viewership and stuff is great. But I think, and then you can have that as one of your criteria, right? Like something that you're watching and monitoring for what fuels you. But I think that the most stressful to put on your shoulders is money, and it's a long, slow grind, and you have to remind yourself of that, and you have to make sure that when that's a determining factor, that you've hardened yourself, knowing that it's gonna be tough skis, right? Tough skis, rough skis. Another idea is just fame. Maybe you just want to be famous. Maybe you just want hundreds of thousands of people watching you, and you don't care about the money and you don't care about all that stuff. You just want the fame. That one's also pretty stressful, right? Because you start to associate your brand and your content with you as a person, and that's also very stressful. I think all of these things could also be known as like stressors, right? Like stressors of a live content creator. But I think that if you're into fame, you need to find out what it is about your content creation that expresses that you want fame, right? And you need to find that. This is not easy. This entire topic is not an easy one to figure out. I don't think anyone ever figures it out. It's kind of like, that one guy who knows exactly what he wants to do with his life, right? And he does it, and you're like, wow, I'm jealous of that guy. I think that those people, the rarity of those people is just as rare as people who have all of their act together when it comes to live content creation and like what drives them and what motivates them. What if you want to make friends? I mean, making friends, in all honesty, it's really funny. As a live content creator, you can do it when you're live or when you're not live. You can just hang out in chats and make friends and talk to people in chats, and then go live, and then those people might show up, and you can just have a great time. I think making friends is probably the most easygoing approach, and if that's all that fuels you, I envy you. I wish I could just do that. I think that those people end up being more successful than others who focus on other things, because if that's their whole drive, I think they're much more relaxed and much more themselves, and that leads to a greater success. You could also talk about building a community. This is definitely one that I approach strongly. This is one that is, for me, a very important aspect of my live content creation. When building a community, the biggest thing I would caution people to is like being too available can be a very dangerous game, and it can be something that you have to like definitely take at a pace that you're able to accept, because it can also be a drain unless you're fueled by that, like 100% fueled by that, and then by all means go for it. And then last but not least, this is just social interaction, period, right? So this isn't necessarily in the, you've already made the friends and you just want to have social interaction. I've worked with content creators who were in another country, and the whole reason that they streamed was so that their friends in the United States could hang out with them in the evenings, and like they could just hang out with their friends. Like they weren't looking for growth, they weren't looking for anything else. The thing that drove them and the thing that fueled them was just having the ability to like a cheap way where they could be live and then people could type to them, a cheap way to interact with all of their friends at once, and so they wouldn't have to like choose one friend to talk to, you know, once a week or whatever. So I think that when you take all of those things together, you need to find your mix, and then you need to start thinking like, what drives me, right? So one of the things that I personally have is I am a energy sponge, right? So when there's energy in a stream, I can pull that energy in and it fuels me. And you can see in my content creation when I'm live, you can tell when my chat's bumping because I get bumping. Like I'm very much like in that moment. That's how I am, and that's part of my brand, right? When chat's real chill, I'm pretty chill. When chat gets bumping, I'm pretty bumping, right? So like I feel like that interaction, and as people watch me, they could understand that, and then they can start to put more energy in when they want to see more energy out of me. I don't think that it's very much the opposite. I don't create the energy. I like to take it and magnify it, right? So with that being said, the next part of this aspect of your why is also like mental health and brand health, where once you really do need to sit down and say to yourself, why do I stream, right? And you need to write those things out. You need to actually sit there and analyze them. And then if you look at that and you feel like it doesn't match up with the platform that you're using, with the type of content that you're creating, such as like, for instance, one of my passions is IRL streaming. I'm slowly building towards trying to build an IRL streaming aspect to my content, because to me, IRL drives me more. I like playing video games, but 30 hours a week of playing video games is not, like I couldn't do one video game 30 hours a week. That's just me. I know that about me. And so I want to work towards making my content more of what I want my content to be. And that's really important. And that might mean that at some point I have to utilize a different platform, because while our IRL does do well on the platform that I primarily stream to, it doesn't do nearly as well as, say, YouTube or Twitch. And so if I want to grow this audience and I want to grow the community, there might be sacrifices I have to make in order for that to continue. And that's stuff that I have to discuss with myself, with my wife, with my community, and I have to make sure that all of that stuff is staying on brand, staying on point, and doing exactly what it is that I want, all the while keeping my mental health in check and keeping my brand in check. Like if I lose any of those things, that integrity in any way, shape, or form, I've entered into territory I don't want to enter, right? So in the end, you need to just really sit down and think about this. And I think this is important. You might need to take a week off to just really think about it. Like when you're not streaming, what is it that you miss about streaming? What is it? Because I mean, everyone knows. I've seen so many people quit streaming, right? They've quit. And then all of a sudden they're back a week later and they're like, I just couldn't stay away, right? Well, then why was that? What was it that you missed so much? Think about that and then jump on it, because that is what's going to make your content the best. Your confidence levels are going to be higher. People see that, and then you'll grow at a much better rate. I honestly think, quick side thought, Professor Broman's podcast, I talk about it. It's good content. There was a guy who came on his podcast, had a conversation with him and said, hey, blah, 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 blah. And then I don't think it's working for me. And Professor Broman was like, yeah, If it's not working for you, stop doing it. Maybe take the approach or the thing that you like about streaming and focus on that instead of the actual streaming. And I believe, I can't remember his name, but there's a guy who he started basically a whole PC build thing, and all he does is build PCs for people. Right? And now all of a sudden, he's extremely successful because he focused on what makes him, what makes him happy and makes the best content. So find what's good for you and make it happen. Once again, I'm Nostalgic. Have a good one.